Good evening, everyone. So, sorry for the mess you see around me in the background. I'm moving my studio again. I'm taking over two of the bays of my garage, and because we're doing construction to the other part of the house. So, sometimes the truth is stranger than fiction. Today, we're going to take a look at the case of William Earl Mold. It's Moldt, but the T is pronounced silently in his name. Now, that is how his family pronounced it. They pronounce it Mold. Okay, so he went missing in 1997, and the facts around this case are pretty bizarre, especially when I tell you, the some of the clues that were there all along, and nobody really investigated the clues or really looked too far into it. And in a lot of ways, the police department really didn't take this case all that seriously and thought that, you know, he was 40 years old. He probably just took off and decided to move away and start a new life someplace. People do that all the time. Hundreds of thousands of people do it around the world every year. You got that right. Hundreds of thousands of people pick up and move and restart their life over somewhere else every year around the world. They may move a town away. They may move across the country. Or they may move to another continent completely and start their lives over without telling anybody where they're going. So, in this case, a lot of police really didn't look for him all that well. Over the 22 years that he was missing, the missing persons report and people seeing him, identifying him, they identified him everywhere from Greece, Belize, Australia, New Zealand, UK, Canada. Reports came in all over the world with tips. Psychics called and said that he had changed his name and was living a double life the entire time. Yeah, and I'm sure that there's probably somebody out there who thought that he was dead. That maybe he walked out into the forest and committed suicide. But when he disappeared, his car disappeared too. 22 years. His car never showed up in a registration, never showed up in the junkyard, nowhere. And William Earl Mold and his car have been found 22 years later. He was found, and his car was found less than a mile from his home, submerged in a retaining pond. Less than a mile from his home. Now, if it wasn't for a snoopy neighbor, ex-neighbor, who lived in the neighborhood, no one would have ever found him. Because, like I said, again, people really were not looking for William all that hard. There was an open missing persons case, but nobody else was really all that interested in finding him. Though it's not always the case, it turns out having a nosy neighbor can sometimes be helpful. A former resident of the Grand Isles community in Wellington, Florida, uncovered the remains of William Earl Moldt, who had been missing since 1997. After he was looking through the area of satellite images on Google Earth, he discovered something that caught his eye. Moldt's remains were finally discovered inside of his car, his 1997 Saturn SL, which had also gone missing during the disappearance, that was submerged in the neighborhood's retention pond. The vehicle, though later found not to be far from the pond's edge, was not visible by the naked eye, but the former resident scanning the area using Google Earth caught sight of the car's yellowish tint from the bird's eye view in the water. The discovery is a major breakthrough in the decades-old missing persons case. In 1997, William Moldt was last seen leaving a nightclub before he phoned his girlfriend, fiance, that he was on his way home. Witnesses said that Moldt left alone inside his vehicle and did not appear to be intoxicated. A day later, when Moldt's whereabouts were still unknown, his family reported him missing to the police. His case was unsolved for the last 22 years until now. After unidentified former neighbor caught sight of the vehicle in the retention pond, they contacted the current resident who lives just adjacent to the pond to verify what they had found visually. The resident then used a personal drone to fly over the water and found what it was indeed a car underneath the water's surface. The resident immediately contacted the Palm Beach Sheriff's Department and told them what they had found. The statement posted on the Sheriff's Department's Facebook confirmed the discovery of the car and the body after investigators towed the vehicle out. They described the drowned car as heavily calcified, and after examining by the medical examiner's office, the body was confirmed to be that of the 40-year-old William Moldt. The car had been in the lake for 22 years, said Grand Isles resident Brian Martin. Many of the neighbors' residents are still in disbelief that there had been a car in the retention pond for 22 years with the body inside. The car seemed to have been visible on Google Earth since June of 2007. Yes, the neighbor who was looking at the images, bird's eye view of his old neighborhood, was scrolling through photographs that were taken by Google Earth in June of 2007. He did not scroll through those photos until 2019. But the images had been online for anyone to see since 2007. But it was only recently discovered. Around the retention pond and the area at that time was still under construction. A temporary dirt road used to run alongside the pond, but is now a grassy area next to the pond. According to the National Missing and Unidentified Persons System, Moldt was not a frequent drinker, but did have several drinks at the bar before he left. Now that his body has been found, investigators are trying to figure out how and when Moldt's car ended up in the water. It was very shocking to us all, another resident, Lori Martin, told local news reporters. I'm glad they did find him, and may he now rest in peace. So, to go back over the facts of the case, William Moldt, him and his car were less than a mile from his home. The retention pond he was found in, and his car was found in, had been not drained, but they had treated it and they had dragged the bottom to remove weeds. This is a semi-annual event that they do, but the car was never found because it was less than 11 feet from the edge of the pond. 11 feet. He had been in the same spot for 22 years. I guess it's a good thing that the neighbor wanted to go back and look at the finished construction of the area. So, thank you for joining me today.